All right, welcome back to I Wish I Was Racing, the webinar series by T0 Endurance. This has been a great series that we've had. We've got many weeks to come here. You can go to iwishIwasracing.com to find out more about who's up next and how you can register. It's all free, definitely. So my guest today is an amazing individual that he holds a Guinness World Record. He holds a world record, let's put it that way. And he has an amazing story that we're going to have you tell him. You're going to tell him about. Marko Cheseto. Are you on? Did you hit those two buttons? He's getting on here in a second. We were just chatting before, and then I had to play the video, but Marko is an amazing individual. He grew up in Kenya and was an amazing runner and still is. Lives now in Orlando, Florida. Did you find those two buttons, Marko? We're slowly getting on here. But he's he had a full ride scholarship to University of Alaska Anchorage as a runner. He's an amazing runner. A few first places, an All-American. And once he gets on here, may take a second here. You get it, Marko? But just to give you an idea of some of the other people that we've got coming on, as Marko's just getting onto the broadcast here shortly. If you go to iwishIwasracing.com, you're going to be able to find the schedule that we have for the next, actually, it's going to be 5 weeks now. We've got some great guests that'll be coming up, some pro triathletes, some inspiring individuals that we are very excited to bring to you in this time of challenge, to be able to have you push through and find that focus to be able to continue to endure whatever race you're going to be doing, whatever challenge that you're going to be facing. We want these people's inspirational stories to be something that brings you some joy and some exhilaration to continue to go. Let's see, Marko, can you hit those two buttons, the camera one and the audio one, right in the middle of the screen? Just having a little technical difficulties, no worries, but kind of give you a little background story of Marko. Marko comes from Western Kenya. He is the third oldest of 11 children. He initially, in 2006, he graduated from the College of Nairobi and he was a teacher. He subsequently loves running. It's his passion to run and continued to run and found his niche, in essence, once he started a running academy. He was running twice a day, doing training twice a day, and was seen by a coach in the University of Alaska Anchorage and was given a full ride scholarship to go there. And I want to make sure that I'm not telling the whole story because I want him to tell some of the amazing parts of his story. Let's see if Marko... I think he'll be clicking on here soon. I can still see his face there. Some of his accomplishments that you can say are pretty impressive. He was first place for 2008, 2009, and 2010 in the Great Northwest Atlantic Conference. In 2009 and 2010, he was the NC2A West Region champion, and he was an All-American from 2008 all the way through in 2008 and 2010 for the 5,000 and 10,000 meter runs when he was at the University of Alaska Anchorage running track there. Let's see. Marko, if you want to just log off and log back on, you can do that too. So Marko now lives in Orlando, Florida. He lives in Orlando, Florida with his wife and 3 kids. We were talking about that just recently, that he moved down there 2 years ago, and he now lives down there. But one of the most interesting parts is they actually drove from Alaska all the way down to Orlando, Florida with 3 kids, which is a feat in itself. That's not his Guinness World Record. We'll get to his Guinness World Record here in a minute. Let's see, Marko. You find those 2 buttons for me, Marko, or are you gonna log off, log back on? Sorry about this technical difficulty here, folks. Let's see if he can get back on here. Okay. We're having a little technical difficulties here. Marko, why don't you log off and log back on? So to give you an idea, so I'll kind of keep it going here. So one of the things that we wanted to do with this I Wish I Was Racing series, and we've got a lot of different guests that will be coming on, is to really provide some motivation and some inspiration to individuals to be able to find why they're doing this. And the biggest thing for most people in this challenging time, whether you're doing your first race or your 100th race, is you always have to have that why, and you have to have that belief that you can do this, and you have to have something that's bigger than yourself to be able to push yourself farther forward. And that's what we have with our guest with this I Wish I Was Racing series, brought to you by T0 Endurance, which is going to be one of those great websites to be able to give you a lot of information. Oops, okay. To give you a lot of information on triathlon itself, to give you a lot of information on how to push forward, no matter what it is, from your mental mindset to your travel to your journey that you're going to be going down. So all these things. I think we've got Marko back here. Click on that video and audio buttons. There we are. Hey. How we doing?
Doing good.
All right. Yes, I was telling your whole story already. Well, it's great to have you on the podcast or on the webinar today. I just wanted to start off with saying, thank you for being such an inspiration to people because of what you do. I kind of led off with, you're originally from Kenya. You love running. And I told your backstory of, in 2006, you graduated from Nairobi and you were a teacher. What did you teach?
I was an elementary school teacher, so all the subjects, English, math, languages in Kenya, Kiswahili.
Oh, wow.
All the subjects.
Oh, that's amazing. Now you enjoyed running all throughout your life, right?
Yes.
And then when you went to that running academy, what was that running academy that you went to that you started training twice a day?
It was after I was approached and told, you can earn some scholarships here. And I thought, well, maybe now I need to be serious about running now. Yes, I was serious previously, but, sometimes you kind of think, well, I'm good. But now that it's going to go to another level, I better get myself ready. And the other thing was, I was getting ready to take the TOEFL exam, the test of English as a second language. So that kind of pushed me to be somewhere where I could get tuition studies for that and also getting ready for running.
And so that kind of led to an individual in Alaska, of all places. It's really the same kind of weather as Kenya, right?
there's something also that I always have to make it clear too. Remember those days, Google was not working where I was from, so I could Google actually where I was going from. So I have an excuse for that.
That is one of the greatest excuses of all time. So now this gentleman Michael came and said, we'd love to have you come to the University of Alaska, Anchorage, and run track for us. And you got a full scholarship, right?
Yes, I did get full scholarship running track and field and cross country.
And so how old were you when you went to Alaska?
I was 24.
24. So you're going up to Alaska. Your degree at that time, you were going into nutrition and nursing, and you were just running track. Were you running cross country as well?
Yes, I was doing cross country too. Yes.
Okay. And now I listed off of your accomplishments are unbelievable. First place in the Great Northwest Athletic Conference, 2008, 2009, 2010, All-American 2008 and 10 in the 5,000 and 10,000. You were, this is just a little thing, but you were the male athlete of the year in 2008 all the way through 2010. So you really know how to run. You were in essence probably that focal point of that running team, right?
Growing up, when you have to run away from lions, you better be a good runner.
That'd be a good shirt.
In Kenya, going to school, going to a grocery store, going to get water. We don't get our waters back in Kenya in a house. You have to go get them from a creek, a river. So all that was a lot of physical activity. So it kind of built me informally to be a good athlete. I didn't realize the advantages then of what it was building me to be. I kind of was I wish I had a school bus, a family car, all these good things to just have a good life. But now looking back, I was like, that was a good foundation for my running career.
That's amazing. It's something that a lot of us in the United States can't understand, of not having everything readily available. How far would you have to run to get things? Like what was the distances?
Sometimes we would walk one way for up to 20 miles. Just even where I went to a boarding school, but the boarding school was far from my house, so we had to walk halfway through to get to a road where we could get a vehicle to go to school.
Wow.
Commercial vehicle. So there were times that we would walk literally for up to 10 hours to get to where we wanted to go.
And for one thing. That's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing. So now tell me how living that way, because a lot of the life experiences create this strength in people, and for me, hearing the story of having to walk, 20 miles for one way, that's amazing. And so what kind of mental advantages did you take away from that life experience and put into your sport?
When you've grown knowing that this is the only way of doing something, you kind of have to be ready for it, because there is no alternative. There is no other choice. You've got to do it. So, but then doing that gives you that ability to appreciate anything else that comes after that gives you kind of an easy way to do something. But
Right.
you already have built a foundation of knowing that nothing in life anyway is easy. So that built me, my endurance physically and mentally, to get ready for whatever would come. So when I landed in Alaska, thinking we were in a wrong airport, because our we were supposed to land at 8:30 p.m. And when we landed, the sun was still up in August in Kenya. We are in the middle of the equator. We have 12 days of darkness and 12 hours of light. So when it's 8:30 in Kenya, it's pitch dark. But having gone that kind of life in Kenya, which I didn't see it as a hard life, it was how things were supposed to be done. It had build me for anything. Like, you're like, okay, this is kind of strange. This is really a culture shock, but anyway, we have to do it. We walked for 10 hours. We were able to go and get water from the creek. We were able to, work in the farm for a whole day. So, this is part of life in this new life that I'm starting.
I love that. It's such an amazing thing to be able to hear, like especially what you said. It wasn't a hardship; it was my life, and that's such an amazing way to put it. And so now we progress. You're in Alaska, and you're going to school there, and you're running track, and then I want you to tell me about November 6th of 2011. That was a day that changed your life and a lot of ways.
Yes, November 6th. By that time, I was going through a major depression. My cousin, who we grew up in Kenya, uh, came to Alaska 2010. So he was a year plus in Alaska. Committed suicide February of that year, 2011. So I was like really, really depressed by that, and I was taking some antidepressants. So I took more than what I should have, my antidepressants, and went for a run. And I passed out. But I was able to get back, in the middle of the night. I just woke up from this dream, and I was in the middle of the woods, middle of nowhere, and the snow had covered like half of my body. And I realized at that time I was in a grave danger. Luckily, I was able to get up and support myself with some trees that were around where I was. Walked, and I found a groomed trail. I followed it, and I ended up in a hotel lobby. And that is where I knew how long I had been out. The guy at the lobby asked me where I had been for 3 days.
3 days.
3 days in November in Alaska, single digit temperatures. And I don't remember a lot of what went on in that hotel lobby. The next thing I remember was being in a hospital bed, and someone I couldn't see because I was not able to open my eyes then, asked me what I was feeling. And I said, everything else in my body is okay except my hands. My hands were so painful. So he asked me, so you're not feeling your feet, any pain in your feet? I said, no. I still remember, just like I was told that yesterday. And the voice goes, that's not good if you can't feel your feet, because pain is a sign of life. But nothing registered then. But 2 days later, they had done electrolyte testing to see if I still had some circulation. But I didn't have anything on my feet. So they said they had to amputate both my feet below the knee. And that moment, like, I didn't have anything to tell myself. I went numb. There was nothing really to tell myself.
Right.
But I had seen how my legs were trying. They were really in bad shape. That kind of gave me some kind of preparedness prior to being told that I might not have my feet. And I was a nursing student too, so I had studied some literature on frostbite and gangrene and what can do to you. So I was kind of knowing what might happen, but I was not ready for to losing both my legs.
Wow. Wow. And so that just your whole life changes around. And so, like you said, you didn't, you know, once you got to the point of understanding that you were going to have both legs amputated, what was your mindset at that point to be able to continue to just push forward? You were a all American runner. Did you fear that you weren't going to be able to run again, or did you know that you would be able to?
At the moment, I didn't have any anything. I just went numb. Like there was nothing I could really tell myself. But then I told myself, just let's see what happens after the amputation. So then I came out of the surgery 3 days, maybe 4 days later. I was just in my hospital bed trying to ask myself how I ended up where I was at the moment. And I realized one thing was I was blaming myself for having not done something to help my cousin. But then the ability to control things. I realized in life, there are some things that you will never have control of. And I just told myself, yes, that's one of the things that I probably didn't have control over. Because if I truly have control over things in life, would I have would I not have prevented amputation of my feet? Would I not have prevented going through a major depression? That was within me. And those are the things that if we have control over everything that I should have in the first place, control. So then I told myself, you know what? Whatever has happened has happened. You're an amputee and you'll be like this for the rest of your life. You can either allow this situation to define who you are, or you can use this as a teachable moment. And I chose to use it as a teachable moment. And I knew that I was the only person who was going to build myself. And no matter what everyone else would say, it was me who was going to determine how my destiny was going to be at that moment. So I started making some changes in my life at the hospital bed. And one of the change that I did was I told myself, I am grieving. I don't think I need antidepressant. I need to stop using that. And I am not saying this to advise somebody to do what I did. I'm not a medical
Right.
professional. I just
Right.
did what I thought was good for me.
Right.
And from that point onward, I just took one day at a time. And there was a fear of maybe this is a fake consolation, a fake solace. Maybe I am going through a denial. But I kept telling myself, if I was able to spend a lot of times to convince myself in a negative way, what prevents me from taking a lot of time to influence myself positively? And I said, you know what? In every one negative thought that comes through my mind, I will bombard it with 25 positive thoughts and see where it will take me. And it changed everything in my life.
That is some of the greatest advice I've ever heard. Of take one negative and I'm going to bombard it with 25 positives, because that is so true. And you know, to be able to have that mindset in that moment is unbelievable. But then you took it to another level of saying, okay, well, I'm a double amputee now, but I'm still going to run. And you went, what, 2018, you finished your first New York City marathon. And I think it was the third fastest time for a double amputee. But then you
Yes.
upped it again in 2019 and said, you know what? I don't like being third. I want to be first, because you'd been first so many times in your life. Is that you got the world record for the fastest double amputee marathon at 2:42:24? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Because that time is way faster than I don't even go to the fridge that fast. And it's about 100 yards away. That is unbelievable accomplishment. How did you feel after finishing that Boston Marathon? Were you going for the world record, or were you just going for a good run?
Prior to me running marathons, I tried to do the Paralympics because they didn't have anything longer than 400 meters
Oh, oh,
for my, and it didn't click. I had been a long distance runner for a long time. I tried sprinting, it was not my thing. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to run long distance. I want to run marathons because I wanted to do something that I was comfortable doing. So 2018, when I decided I wanted to run long distance, I was still in Alaska then, but then I realized it's not practical for me to train in Alaska. I was going to, my prosthetist is in Orlando, and I've been going back and forth since 2014. So 2018, we decided we are moving to Orlando with the help of my prosthetist too, who had also been encouraging me to move to Orlando since I first saw him. But it had not, the planning had not been right. So we moved. But as soon as I moved and made an announcement that I was going to do marathon, Bob Babbitt just calls me and say, "Hey, Marko, you're running New York City Marathon to raise funds for Challenge Athlete Foundation." And I say, "Yes, I am doing it, but I'm going." Why would you commit yourself to a crazy idea and you've not even trained? I had not even ran as an able-bodied athlete. I just did a half marathon, and it was close to the hardest thing that I had done in my life. And I wanted to double that. Now as an amputee, and I've not even trained for it. But, I said, you know what? I will give it a shot. So I went to New York feeling like I was not ready to run a marathon, but then in life, I've always realized that there is no such thing as perfect timing. You have to attempt to know what you need to change, because how do you know that something is not going to work if you've not attempted it? Right. You even go to a car dealership, they say they show you a car with 0 miles. It's from the factory, but it has to go to a road test for you to know if it's working. Yeah. So I put my test, New York City, and that just changed everything. I knew at that point that yes, finishing New York City Marathon in that time with this much practice, oh, I still have so much in the tank. So going to Boston, I knew for sure that I was going to run faster than New York. But going to Boston too, I was not going for a record, because I had checked the previous year how the weather was, and I told myself, if the weather was going to be like the 2017 in Boston, I'm not going to run that. I survived the frostbite. I think I can put my body through that. But the weather was so perfect that day, and it worked out. And, every time I do something, I don't tell myself I'm going to do it halfway or 90%. I just put, because you never know when your best day is. Just right. Put 100% on whatever you're doing every day, because you would never know where your life can change. You're an amazing person, amazing individual. And we were talking about before you got on, before we started the webinar, just how challenging it is to run on prosthetics. Like the one thing that I remember that you said, you just never know when it's going to fail. Like, give us an idea of how much strain and stress go on your body when you run with prosthetics. A prosthetic is not like putting on a shoe, because if you lose your shoe in a race, particularly a marathon, you still have a long way to recover. You can still put it on. Something goes wrong in prosthetics, the probability of you getting it back on is very slim. Also, the longer it could take you to do something, the more likely that something will go wrong. I have a silicone liner that I have to put on first, and then a sock on top of the liner, and then the socket, and then a sleeve to hold the prosthetic to myself. Remember, it's not porous. Right. It collects all the sweat. So by the time I finish a half marathon, I would have accumulated up to, I don't know how much liquid in that liner. Imagine running on a shoe full of water
Yeah.
for 26.2 miles. It's
Oh,
not very comfortable, but in life, sometimes realizing this is how things are, you have to train your brain to just ignore some things and try your best, because even if you sit down there and give the best excuse that you have, like I'm trying to explain how challenging it is to run on prosthetics, it's not going to matter anyway. You people will listen to your complaint, your excuses, and then life continues. And what would you have to prove that I tried? Nothing. Also,
right.
they are fitted in a lab where it's so flat. There is no, you cannot incorporate the topography changes that you go through in a marathon. The slanting of a land, you run sometimes, there's like grooves,
Yeah.
potholes. All those factored in when you are in a lab. But you go out there, but you have to fight with all those conditions out there. It rains, gets very slippery because the surface area that you have with the ground is so tiny that any you can even step on a bead and that will knock you off.
Wow. That's that's crazy to think about that kind of stuff.
But then
That is,
at the same time, you're faced with this. People throw out this thing like there's no way someone running on prosthetics can run that fast. It must have been an advantage on the prosthetics.
no.
And, we're trying to share this story because there could be someone out there who has prosthetics, but they are afraid of what people think of running with prosthetics. But I always tell my amputee friends, if there was an advantage running on prosthetics in every running event, you would have seen people with prosthetics flooding on those runs, because people would be going to surgeries to have their legs cut so that they can have the advantage that we have. If nobody going to have their both legs one cut so that they can have an advantage in running, there is no such thing. So just and stop listening to their voices and let's just encourage each other. Look, people, this is how sometimes I think of people running in prosthetics. You have someone, and I'm not saying these people are not putting the best of their lives.
Hmm.
Someone with prosthetics, they run 5 hours. It's so encouraging. Oh my goodness, that person did amazing. We are so inspired. They start running 3 hours. Oh, well, that's amazing. They start running 2:42. Whoa, there must be something on that prosthetic. What changed? The 5
What?
was inspiring, the 3 hours was kind of inspiring. But the amount of work that I put myself, I get up every day. Here in Florida, you cannot mess it and snooze your alarm because you miss your morning run starting at 5 a.m. My friend, the sun will take over in around
Yeah.
9 o'clock and you make it 2 miles. It's going to be like, it's too hot, it's too humid. So 2 hours of training every day. So the amount of
Wow.
work, nobody looks onto that too.
No, you don't. Nobody sees that the back end that you have to put in to get to that not even a pedestal, but to get to those huge goals that most people are afraid to go for. I mean, you went and achieved many big goals, and it's amazing the way that you put yourself out there. In addition, to help others to find their path and their journey. It has been so amazing talking with you. I always want to end with you've given us so many words of wisdom. I love it. But what would be the one thing, there's a lot of people feeling like this is a huge challenge to them right now. And what would you say to them to just take it day by day? What would you say?
Yes, and I'm not minimizing too. I want people out there listening to this. I'm not minimizing that this is a challenging time, but we have to remember every challenge will pass. Everything that has a start will always have an end. So this will too come to an end. But for you to navigate through all this in life, you've got to have gratitude. Once you start being grateful on every opportunity, every challenge, everything that you've gone through in life, every little thing that you've achieved, it gives you a greater perspective of life. Because you think, people say, this is tough times, very challenging, very demotivating, I'm demoralized. But then you ask them, have you ever had a time like this prior to all these changes in our lives? Yes, I ask myself, has there been a time in my life when I was an able-bodied that things were really tough? Of course, that is why it started before I even lost my legs anyway. Even at times that you would have thought were the best times, there were challenging moments too.
Right.
So learn to be somebody who makes things happen. There are two categories of people, or maybe more than that, but we're specifically two: those who make things happen and those who watch things get done. So be on those people who, because those doers, we can make it, they always find a way of doing things, regardless of what the circumstance is. Excuses, you can have the best excuse in life ever, but it's not going to change your life. It's not going to make whatever you've not achieved become part of your legacy, because it will always remain that you never achieved this because you thought giving an excuse will get you there. It will not get us where we want to. Life is challenging. People tell me, oh, we live in very uncertain times in life. I'm going, wow, you guys are living in your planet. Huh? My life has been so uncertain since I was born, because I didn't know age 28 I was going to lose both my feet. I didn't know that in the year 2020 I will be living in Florida, but I took each day
Yeah.
and appreciated what it gave me. So there has been uncertainty. There will be. And
Right.
that is the beauty of life, because can you imagine if we knew in 2002, for example, or 2017, that in the year 2020 there will be a major respiratory disease that's going to kill a lot of people? Can you imagine how amazing that would have been, waiting and anticipating and like thinking, how is this going to be? Sometimes uncertainties is good because it gives you that peace to just take one day at a time and enjoy whatever you have at the moment.
You are an amazing individual, and everybody that gets to listen to this one, whether it's live or afterwards, will be so inspired, and your words are amazing. Thank you so much for being an inspiration to not just myself today, but to everybody by continuing what you're doing and just making everything. Gosh, I feel better today after having listened to you. So thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find you? I mean, if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
It's easy to find me. I have my website and it's easy: marathonmarko.com. You can just find me on my social media handles, my Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's all Marathon Marko. Just Marathon Marko, and I'm right there. I really engage my fans. If you text me, I make sure that any question that somebody sends me, I will make an attempt to reply.
That's fantastic. I would expect nothing different from you because you're an amazing individual. Thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. I know you got 3 kids that are probably clamoring to for your attention now. But thank you so much, and you have a great rest of your night.
Thank you for having me, and you have a great evening too, and be safe.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in today. Go on iwishIwasracing.com to find out more about our schedule to come. Other than that, thanks again. And remember, make it a great day. Thanks again for coming. Bye.